right, welcome back to the channel, and today we've got Stephan with us again. No surprise there. It's our third time, I think, Stephan.
Yes.
So Stephan is from Bond Gallery. So if you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, please go and check them out. Stephan, welcome again.
Thanks so much, Dace. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for this episode today because we're going to talk about the different types of criteria and the things that people need for each application.
Yeah.
So, I'm very excited.
Look, I mean, people have been asking, for another follow-up episode based on the type of questions that they've got. And I think the criteria is a big one. So tell us a little bit more about this.
Well, we're going to start with salaried applicants. So with salaried applicants, it's most of the time it's much easier to get a bond because if you get the same salary each month, it's exactly just for the banks to be able to verify that you've got 3 different salary credits and they're all the same amount, and then we get the approval. But in also a case where people earn commission. So that's something that we really get a lot, is that people ask me, I only earn commission, will I be able to get a bond? And the answer is yes. So what the banks usually do is that, and we also look at it that way, is to take an average over 6 months. But some of the banks also take out the highest amount and the lowest amount.
Yeah.
Take the other 4 months, add it together and divide it by 4. So
Okay.
that's how we get the average. So then we will work on that average, take your expenses off, and also then look at the 1,500 that we need, or to 2,000. After your bond has been paid, all your expenses have been paid, and then we look at the amount.
So a question while we're on the commission topic, do
Yes.
you need to have a certain amount of consecutive months where commission was paid to qualify?
That's valid, yes. So you can't have a gap in between the 6 months.
Okay.
So even if you just earn 10 Rand, we need to see a credit for that month.
Okay.
Because you can't have one, skip one, have one.
Correct.
So we need for 6 consecutive months,
Okay.
we need all the commission income for those 6 months to be
Okay.
able to do the average, yes.
All right. Okay. And what are some of the other criteria? Because obviously you've got like a build loan that one can
Yes.
do. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit more about that.
So with the building loan, most people don't always love properties that are in the area, but also they see maybe just a piece of vacant land and they would want to build on it.
Yeah.
So what we usually require, and it's also very interesting because people don't know how a building loan works. So in the first instance, so we usually will ask, say for instance, you earn a salary, then we'll ask the normal documents, the payslips, the bank statements, ID copy, POPI Act form. If you're self-employed, financials, bank statements, income letter, those type of things. But then we will require an offer to purchase on the land portion. And then we will also ask for a building contract from a builder. We will need an NHBRC certificate. That's very important of the builder, the enrollment certificate. We will need a quote, schedule of finishing, breakdown of costs, and a building plan.
Okay.
So, and usually the building plan we'll get from an architect. And what we'll do is then we will put the land price in as a loan amount as well as the building contract amount. And that they will see as plot and plan. So those two together will be combined. But with registration, the banks will pay out the land portion, and then they will keep the rest in retention, and they will pay it out as work has been done.
Okay.
So that's also very important to know, that you do have a builder that you trust, that's also that's got a big company,
Yes.
reputable company.
Yeah.
So you know that you don't have issues and problems down the road where they don't have money to start off with, because that's the most important thing, is that the bank will not support money or give money to start off any building beforehand.
Yeah. And then tell us, what type of services are on offer for expats? Like what type of loan, and how does it look like? How is it structured?
For expats, we actually, in the area, we have a lot of expats buying in the area. So That's a very good question as well. So the banks will usually look, if you put down a deposit, it's always better because the risk is less for the
Yeah.
bank. So usually they look at about an 80% bond, 20% deposit.
Okay.
But I've had instances where someone's first time home buyer, those type of things. So they would like to look at 100%, maybe also get costs as well.
Mm.
So because some people work on contract work, I've had instances where the banks actually just want to know that there's sustainability of income. So I would usually ask for previous year's contracts to state and show. And it's especially better if they came from, or they're going back to the same farmer, as an instance where I've got clients that work on farms overseas. So that helps to also with my motivation to the bank to
Yeah.
state that they're going back to the same farmer. And usually they also give a letter to state that they will also go back the next year.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
also helps us to motivate sustainability of income. Also, a major thing that they want to know is that you are buying the property and that you will stay in the property when you are in South Africa,
Yeah.
and not buy it as a rental or to rent it out or anything like that. So that's also one of the points that we do raise. But we have had instances, especially if we can show the sustainability of income, where we get 100% bonds for our
Okay.
clients. Yeah. So, but those are the type of things that we need to look at,
Yes.
and also remember when we do the
Yeah.
application.
So while we're on the expat topic, right?
Yes.
So now, I go overseas, I meet somebody, I get married, bring them over this side, and I start an application. What does that process look like?
That's very interesting because I've had a few instances where that happened. So in South Africa, when you get married overseas, they see you as married in community of property, South Africa.
Okay.
So we need that person to also co-sign. So even if the offer to purchase needs to be done, that person also needs to be added
Okay.
to the application. The other thing is that, remember, because they are not from South Africa or not South African citizens, the bank will not give 100%. So what the banks will do is that they'll give you 100% of 50% as the South African, and 50% of 50% because your partner is not a South African. So then we look at a bond for 75%.
Okay.
So we need a 25% deposit.
Okay.
So that's something that we also have to look at and look after if we look out for
Yes.
when we do the application. Instance like that.
Okay. And then with the bond applications, is there any other type of application that is on offer that somebody might not think that they could apply for?
As we said in the previous episodes, especially with people that are older people,
Yeah.
up to
Pensioners,
75, pensioners earning a pension income, we can definitely look at their income and also their affordability to try and see what amount they qualify for.
Yeah.
Especially in those cases, they will ask for the newest pension fund statement to just see what amount they've got that's in trust or been put away and that they get interest on. And they also want to know the term, how long they will receive the money, those type of things. And that's also an indication of the period that they will get. But as I said, they'll get a bond up to 75.
Okay.
So that's also very interesting.
Then another question I generally get asked quite a bit when people, want to buy a property, etc., is how does it work with, the bonds when you want to do solar, as an example, for instance? How does that process work?
So most of the banks actually do offer that you can add the solar. One of the banks, I don't know if can I say the name?
I'm sure we can. If it's public knowledge, then we can
it's
share
public
it.
knowledge.
Yeah?
So like with Standard Bank, they will add, we get a quotation for solar. We send it with the application and they will grant that loan.
Okay.
They actually also pay out 50% of the fee or the total quote to start off the whole process.
Okay.
A valuer will go out. once the process has finished, and also check if the work was done, and then they will release the rest, the other
Okay.
50%. So yeah, there's definitely options that some of the other banks will then allow you to borrow money on your existing home loan to add solar. They always ask for a reason when we do a
Yes.
further advance or a
Yeah.
further loan on the bond. So that's also one of the other options that people look at. But yeah, we can definitely.
Okay.
There's always a way. There's always a method.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
Altyd 'n manier.
Yes.
So another question is, so besides solar being an asset, or if you want to take out a further extension on the bond for home renovations, etc., right? What other applications have you seen that's come through which might be a bit of an anomaly?
Yeah, we've had funny applications, but it's things like people trying to move into a property. They bought a property and it's not in a good state. They want to fix it up.
Yeah.
So the banks will never borrow anything more than what the purchase price is, for the fact that they don't want you to load the transaction with
Yes.
the costs.
Yeah.
And we also spoke about that previously, but in an instance where someone comes and they want to buy the property, they've got quotations to state this is what the renovation will cost, then the bank will actually grant them the purchase price, but also grant them the amount that we applied for according to the quotations.
Yes.
And they will also then do it like a building loan. I've also had an instance where they paid it out beforehand. So
Okay.
yeah, it just depends on what the bank states, or how they will do it. But
Okay.
we've had it before. Yeah,
Interesting.
We can look at it. Yeah.
Okay. And then another question is, when we look at the cost reduction, as we spoke previously, that you assist and aid, buyers with,
Yeah.
if I'm not a first-time buyer, let's say I'm a recurring, it's my second or third that I'm applying for, what advice can we give for that type of customer?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we actually also look. There's one bank that actually offers discount on attorney fees
Okay.
for second time and third time
Okay.
buyers. But we've had instances where the clients do want to stay with their own bank, and the banks are very competitive. So
Yeah.
if we do go back to their own bank and state that they could have received a discount if they went with another bank, then their own bank will also try and compete. So we usually then get the same for them as
Okay.
at that other bank.
Okay. So there's at least some hope for second or third time
Yes.
returning home buyers as well.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah. We always try. And look, the thing is, the other banks do give discount, but there's some banks that give a bit more. So
Yeah.
we always try, as I said, that's our job, is to get the best deal for our clients, including a discount at the attorney fees. Because as we said, it's quite an expense. So if someone can get discount and it will help them to get the fees together, then it's a big deal. So I've had
Absolutely.
situations where if we don't get it, then we can't make it work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a major thing.
Okay. Stephan, another question that I've got, because I get that frequently as well. So when a customer wants to buy a property or a business, they generally want to look at the options that's available. Either you buy the piece of property in a trust or in a PTY, etc. Do you guys help with those procedures as well?
Yes, we do. So we
Okay.
can definitely look at a property, a company buying a property. We've got, and it's very interesting. I learned a lot in this area, I must say and state. Also, we've had instances where people buy a property that's in a company already. So you don't buy the property, you buy the company, the
Correct.
member's interest
Yeah.
in the company, and the company has a property in it.
Yeah.
But it's a bit risky, but also you need a good lawyer to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, if you buy over a company and it's got debt, then you're buying over their debt as
Correct.
well.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to look at, but we can definitely look at it. And also clients buying in their company's name.
Yes.
But in an instance like that, because they are then still self-employed,
Yeah.
the banks see them as surety, the directors. So
Correct.
they still need to be able to qualify for the property or the bond
Yeah.
as the surety of the company.
Yeah.
And that's something that people aren't educated about. They think that, okay, I pay myself a small salary, and I understand why. But if you look at buying a property, you have to be able to afford it.
Absolutely.
So that's what I said previously as well. Pay yourself that salary every month, the same amount, and know that you can buy a property.
Yeah. I frequently have, buyers that want to, buy into an existing either PTY or trust. And then I always tell them as well, depending on how the shareholding is split, because you're basically buying the shareholder portion of the business, and then also the VAT implications that goes along with it. You know, is the company's VAT up to date? Has it been paid? Because you're inheriting all of that historical debt and, issues or challenges along with it.
Yes.
So that's something I normally advise on as well. So very important components that, if you don't understand it, rather speak to the professionals and get the right advice.
Exactly. But also why people do it is because then there's no transfer duty.
Correct.
Because they buy the property, it's with payout from the bank side after registration. It's just, not registration, but after they registered the bond, then they won't have to pay the transfer duty.
Correct,
because there's no transfer of a property.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, it's only ownership of the PTY basically, or the company.
Yes.
Stephan, so another question that I get frequently, because obviously there is vacant lands available this side of, of SA. So what portion of a bond would somebody get approved if they're doing that based on the vacant land?
On vacant land, we can only look at a 60% bond.
Okay.
So the banks will give 60% with a 40% deposit. We've had instances where one of the banks will look at an 80%, but it's only over a 10-year term.
Okay.
If you then decide to build, then if we took it up at that certain bank, then they will also have to apply for the building loan portion at that same bank. But then after the building loan or after the build has finished, it will turn into an ordinary loan. So that term will go to 20 years.
Understood.
Yeah. So, but if we look at a plot and plan, we can look up to 100% at two of the four major banks.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also another bank that's also very competitive at the stage. So, but their criteria is a bit different for higher earning income clients. So, but as I said, you can find me anytime. I am there. It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And you don't always remember this stuff. So that's why it's always important to have a bond originator on your speed dial as the person to phone if you ever want to look at buying property.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think the important thing is, like we mentioned, each scenario is actually unique. No scenario is the same. And that's where it's so important. Raise your personal information with the relevant party, being your bond originator, and get the relevant information back based on your scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's good that you raised that point, because the banks do have the qualifying criteria. But if you do put a good motivation together and make credit understand the situation and what you are trying to put forward and what your goal is by getting the bond, obviously, is that makes them understand your situation. They can also see and understand, okay, I can see your point. This is why we need to grant this bond. And then they will. So it's not always to say that they won't. They might. And good motivation, that's the big thing. If you can motivate to the banks, you can get the deals.
Fantastic. Stephan, thank you once again for your time.
Pleasure.
It was good to have you back in studio with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. So if you have any further questions for Stephan All of his contact details are going to be made available. So get in touch direct. And once again, the service is free. Make use of it so that you don't have to pay that unnecessary school fees. Stephan, thanks again.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dave.
We are Bond Gallery, your bond finder, taking the stress off. We make it kinder. You find the house, we'll find the home. Together you'll never be alone.